Hello and welcome to this MyBlend Google Hangout. I am Dave Goodrich. I am an instructional designer with the MyBlend program at Michigan Virtual University, and I have the extreme pleasure of meeting with David Theune and just throwing him some questions about blended learning in general and just getting to know him. So David, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now, and thank you for meeting with us.
Great. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for finding me.
Well, it was hard not to find you because of the great things we hear about your passion in education and your excitement for all things blended learning. So we're excited to introduce you to hopefully some other educators around the state and beyond who are really interested in exploring all things blended learning and who are maybe just starting to tap into it, or those who've been seasoned and have been doing it for a long time and just want to hear from other teachers who are doing it as well. So
cool.
Yeah, so maybe we could get a little bit of background in terms of your educational background, teaching, like what subjects you've been teaching and where you're at and how long you've been there, all that jazz.
Yeah, sure. So I got into the education game a little late, actually. I came into it when I was 26. So I didn't go to school to be an educator. I actually went as a theater performer. And, you know, I just went through the whole process, got into a grad program, and it was there when I had this kind of really phenomenal experience with kids where they just kind of needed some help teaching theater or whatever, and I had this experience that sort of changed my life, and I hope people have those where it's like it's just so clear what you need to do that then you do it, and it leads to great rewards. And so that was education for me. So at 26 or a little younger now, go to school and landed a job here in Spring Lake, Michigan. It's over on the west side. It's a beautiful part of our state. And I've been teaching for 11 years. I teach well, when I first started, I was teaching freshmen English, sophomore English. Now I'm teaching juniors in advanced composition, American literature. I teach drama, which is a nice, so that I can use my background. And most recently, I guess, this exciting turn to using technology in the classroom and also to speak about it and talk about it and really just share my stories. I found that connecting with other educators in other districts has been just a wonderful experience for me because I'm learning so much by talking to them, and I hope, of course, they are too from talking to me.
Yeah, that's really cool how you stumbled into it, just helping out with theater, and then I know what you mean, and that's a common story in educators where you just like, oh my word, yes.
Yes.
And you just have this, I don't know what to call it, a calling into helping kids succeed, and that, yeah, I know what you mean. That's awesome. So what could you maybe give an example of what blended learning looks like, what it is for you, what it looks like on a daily basis in your context?
Yeah, sure. So that's really good, and I think as we kind of talk here today, but as the overall conversation continues for the MyBlended program, I think this is an important question because from my understanding, what I'm learning from other educators is that it really is a different definition for lots of different people. So here's my version. Here's my story. My blended story is that I still have my students every day. So in some ways, I always used to think of a blend as, well, you see them sometimes and sometimes you don't. And so blending for me, and what it's been in my classroom, is just the bringing in the technology in the classroom, saying we're going to use these computers, we're going to change assessments, we're going to think differently, we're going to let it inform us and give us information so that we can then act on that information and kind of and then try to reach out too. So technology has been good for that. But it's a kind of a traditional setting in terms of I see my students. We're on trimesters, so I see my students every day for 12 weeks. and for 70 minutes a period. But my students come in, and as it's set up right now, I'm actually part of a pilot program. Spring Lake just passed a bond that's going to include some more technology, I think. But I'm part of a pilot program that was sort of thinking, before we go for that bond, let's make sure that this is a good move. And indeed it has been. And so what I have is a classroom set of Chromebooks, and my students just come in. They know every day. It's like, we know we're going to use them, so we just come in and get them. And so it's really using technology in the classroom and blending with the face-to-face, the shoulder-to-shoulder, the online, and it's just been awesome. It's been a great transition. Yeah.
How long has that pilot been going on?
We're just finishing up year 2.
Okay.
So last year was my first year with technology, and now just finishing up my second. You know, it's, for me, it was really exciting. I mean, I didn't volunteer for this pilot program if I wasn't excited about it. So I was excited, but certainly nerve-wracking. I mean, it's like, yikes, I used to be the one with all the answers, and now, Google knows a lot more than I do. You know, it just knows more stuff. But what it doesn't know is it doesn't know my kids. And it doesn't know how to motivate them, and how to kind of direct their thinking. It doesn't know how to get that, and it's been the greatest change of my teaching. Is I'm not the source, the sole. So I am a source of information, but I'm not the sole source of information. I get to be more of the guy who provides inspiration, which for me, that's why I got into teaching. I mean, I get to really inspire the kids so that they make that information meaningful. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of fear sometimes that, like, the role of the teacher is diminishing, but in actuality, it's becoming more important, I would argue, because of that critical facilitator role. And like you said, Google doesn't know your students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I believe that. Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. You know, the technology, I heard, I'm totally stealing this from somebody, and I don't know who it is, but I heard it at a conference once, and it just made a lot of sense to me. This person said technology is a lot like fire. You know, fire, we love it because it takes disease out of our food. It warms us. It warms us when we're cold. It is essential for those reasons. But fire can also burn down your house, right, if you don't know how to use it well.
Wow.
And so I think it's a pretty great metaphor for technology. If we don't know how to use it well in education, it could burn down our house, you know. So we have to know how to use it well, because if we do, it can also warm us. And it can be, there's this sort of idea that, that it drives human disconnection. And that just has not at all been the case for me. It actually drives human connection, the technology has, in a few distinct ways. One is it lets my silent students be vocal, okay, without putting them on the spot, and sort of saying, well, now you need to know the answer at this moment, instead on their own terms, through like forums that we'll have through our learning management system. Through those forums, we can say, here's the question. Now let's have a conversation about that. And everybody responds. In my audible questioning, you know, a third will respond, or I'll mandate, okay, you have to respond right now. And of course, they might be panicked and scared and all these things, which can be okay, but it often doesn't result in the best, you know, kind of response. So that's one way that human connection is brought in by technology. Another way, though, is I've never, ever communicated with teachers, you know, overseas, or really former students overseas. I've communicated now with somebody in the United Kingdom, a student who's living in Chicago, and we got some insight on what it is to be a college student in a big city. Being from Spring Lake, which is small, it's just so nice to be able to have those conversations. I've even been able to connect with another high school teacher in Illinois who I've yet to meet face-to-face, where our students had this, we created monologues together and edited them and worked on them and then videotaped them and put them on YouTube and then commented on them. And it was like, these are things I could not do without technology. So to say kind of blandly technology drives disconnection is just not the case for me.
Interesting. And so you've been teaching for 11 years, and then you started, how long ago, like really starting to tap into the world of blended learning?
Well, to be frank, it was really with the pilot, pilot that started 2 years ago. I mean, before then, we were in the kind of classic, like sign up for your the computer lab, that kind of thing, and you know, you just sort of, at least me, I recognized, well, other teachers need this too, so I'm not going to sign up for it every day, and so we'd only kind of go in there sporadically, and which we would do to type up papers or whatever. But yeah, I would say it started in earnest really with the pilot 2 years ago.
And you said that you were excited about the pilot when you heard about it. What were some other like inspirations that came along to get you excited to join that pilot?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say that the team. So we have a few teachers here who are on that pilot. We actually started with 12, 6 in the elementary schools, 6 at the 7 through 12. And knowing the people on that team, they were motivated, really exciting, and really wanted it, teachers. And so being a part of that has been inspiration. Really, my colleagues have been awesome, and they've led me to this great source. We also went through an organization to get some professional development, CBD. And they've been spectacular, really pushing us to kind of say, well, listen, you have this tool now, but how are you going to use it to really transform education? And that's been an essential question. What are you going to do? We can't just do class as usual, or at least I don't think we should do class as usual with the technology in the classroom.
Sure. Let's talk about reactions in terms of the reactions of your students and parents, administrators. What's been the overall response to the pilot?
The overall has been excellent. We really wouldn't have gone down the path of this bond if it wasn't overall good. But it's not without its bumps. It's not without its bumps. And I'd like to add here, I mean, I'm a massive proponent. I would not be here talking to you today if I was not a proponent. I love technology, and it deserves to be in the classroom. And I think daily, and as we push kids into the future, it's like this is really important. But it's not a magic pill.
Right.
We're not going to say, well, now that our kids have iPads, or now that our kids have Chromebooks, or now they're going to and it's just going to take care of everything, right? If we don't set up really good plans for implementation, there's going to be students just roaming around, poking around, and it's not going to work very well. That could definitely happen, and it does happen. But that really hasn't happened too much here in Spring Lake, at least from my perspective, and people have viewed it very well. So let me get a little bit more specific about the various levels of people. The students love it. It's sort of innate for them, they just, as soon as I say, hey, those computers over there, you can pick them up and use them, it's like, oh, great, and it becomes so freeing to do that. And then really after just a week, it's just sort of innate. They're just hammering away. And sometimes when they start out class, it might be on something else, and then I kind of focus it. And sometimes, though, they're just hammering away on the work because they know what they want to do. They just need to get to it. So those students overall love it. Again, sometimes they don't, and I think that that's where the teacher comes in. Is just absolutely necessary. We need to help these students use them and recognize when is it okay not to use it. Like, you know what?
Yes.
Paper and pen is good today. Like, if that's how it's best for you, then fine. It just so happens that for the majority, that's not the best, right? They're used to doing this is what they do at home, and so they do it. Okay, so for students, it's innate. For parents, I was shocked at how much they liked it. I was concerned about this population, like, oh boy, is this going to be... But again, and I want to be really careful here, actually, because I want to be a little cautious of saying, they love the computers. I think what they loved is that the students were doing more work.
Yes.
The students were working harder. They were doing more. They were making more things. They were creating and sharing on a different kind of level than they ever had before. So I want to be cautious to say they loved the computers, because I think, too, if the teacher's not leading them right, that they could hate those computers. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the response has been great, and mostly it's been great because a big focus of my pedagogy has been in sharing, in getting a real audience, and parents have been major components of that audience. We've been sharing the work to those parents, and I hear over and over and over again, Dave, I haven't seen my students work since elementary school.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It just comes up all the time how much that sharing component, that really presenting component has come in handy. And there's no doubt technology really helps that, right? If I have a paper and then what am I going to do? I guess we could mail it, right? You could do that, but it's just so much easier. It's streamlined. It's so nice with the technology. So I hope that helps. And administration, like I said, they wouldn't have moved forward really with the bond if they didn't like what they saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as you're getting advice and working with colleagues and learning together throughout this pilot moving forward, what would be some advice that you would give to other instructors who are just starting to look into this for the first time?
That's good. That's important. I would get to good professional development. So I think that would be, I'll say it one more time because I believe it so much. I'd get yourself to good professional development. For me, that was McCall. The McCall conference was essential in my success. I didn't realize what was out there in the world of technology. I didn't, even in education, I just was sort of like, and I felt good as a teacher. Let me quick. I felt good as a teacher my first 9 years. It was good. It was fine, but I didn't realize how much more it could be. And good professional development led me to that place. Okay, so that would be one. But number two, and I say this to my students actually all the time, but I'll say it to anyone. And it doesn't matter. It don't even have to be in education. I'd say it to anyone. We have to kind of been using this term fail forward. So I see two different kinds of failure. One is failure because, let me talk about my students or use my students as examples. One is failure where it's like, you didn't do it. You didn't try. You didn't read, so you didn't do well on the paper, and then you did the paper at the last second, the morning at breakfast, or plagiarized, or whatever. That's failure. But there's a different kind of failure, I think, and I'm kind of calling it in my own world failing forward. And that's where we are really trying something. I'm going to try this thing. I'm going to try connecting with this teacher in Illinois on the monologue project. And then when it's done, I'm going to see what was awesome about it and what wasn't so awesome about it. And I'm going to make sure I ask my students too. And then I'm going to make changes for next year. That's failing forward. And it's not even failure, right? Oftentimes it's like that project I wouldn't call a failure. It was massive success, actually. But it's that idea that I'm going to push for something, and I might come up short. It might not work. When I make my first digital narrative, I might not realize all the power of transitions, or when I put them in, the transitions might be awkward, and you know what, it doesn't look like a movie would look, but we're not movie makers, and it's okay. And when you do it once, you're going to learn better the second time. Those are failing forward. And so I would say find great professional development, if I got to give you one name, it'd be McCall. Go there. And number 2 would be willing to fail forward. Fail, think, and redo is essential to success.
Man, that's fantastic. I really love the fire analogy that you gave. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that a lot.
Yeah, dude. I stole it.
Yeah, it's so, like, it talks about primitive technology too,
Yes.
and it relates. Any form of technology is the same kind of lesson, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
fantastic. And then failing forward. So that's a perfect transition into the next question that maybe we can end on is, what for you have been the huge advantages? You've touched on some of them, but what have been the huge advantages, and then what have been some of the biggest challenges for you in implementing blended learning?
The biggest success, no doubt, has been reaching a wider audience. Because of the technology, I really would say this, because of the technology, the students recognize, so I teach writing a lot, the students recognize that their words matter right now. Right now, they can make a difference. So I say this through blogging. I say this through live streaming readings that they've done. It's just been, reaching audience has been the biggest success of this so far. The biggest failure, see, this is a little harder for me to answer because I don't see failures as failures. I see them as like opportunities.
Absolutely.
So it's a little harder for me to answer. It's a little frustrating plugging them in every night.
Yeah.
So maybe that's that I can't seem to get my students to plug in their computers is maybe my biggest failure. You know, that they just still, after 2 years, I'm looking at them right now, they're not plugged in. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that taps into a real challenge as it relates to blended learning, especially if you're working in an environment where this is a one-to-one program or something, like with Chromebooks. There are some technological hurdles that you have to cross, correct?
Certainly. And so getting the right people, I mean, making sure that you've really thought all that through. So developing a team to be thinking about that, reaching out to other districts, you know, really heavily leaning on your tech department if they feel good and skilled in this area is important to do for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I know that I could go on and on with questions to run by you in terms of your experiences. I'm sure that this has been incredibly helpful for those listening in and those who will tap into this later, who will get to know you and hopefully maybe even connect with you and run questions by you as they're starting to tap into this world. Maybe we could leave your contact information at some point when we publish this.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's been having colleagues, and really just having somebody to applaud you along the way, even when it comes up short, and saying but you pushed yourself, but you tried.
Yes.
Right? You did something out of the box, and that's good. Well, I can take on that role too. So.
Oh, thank you so incredibly much, David, for having this conversation with us. Hopefully we can do this again sometime and learn more.
Yeah, that would be great. I was just thinking, because I can go on and on too, but I know we're limited in time, and so if it works out again, I'd be happy to do it.
Thank you so much, David. And for those of you who have joined us, thank you for watching and tuning in, and we look forward to the next MyBlend interview. And please reach out to David, connect with him, ask him questions. He has a lot of experience and good advice to pass along, and we thank him for spending time with us today and letting us learn a little bit more about what he's doing. Have a great one, everyone.